Sit. Speak. Good job. Harris, speak. Speak. Louder. Speak. Woo. Louder. Not loud enough. Sit. Rocky nose. Harris, sit. Good job. That's enough stuff. So I just came outside to let the dogs run. They're around the other side of the house. I don't know if they'll come around here with me. I don't know if they knew I was back. But I wanted to address a subject that I think maybe some people might be interested in, about a lot of things that you should think about before you decide to get a golden doodle, or a dog for that matter. I was listening for the dogs. A golden doodle is one of the best pets that a person could ever own. I mean, hands down, I have been a dog person my whole life, and they have to be the smartest dogs according to my experience. They're the smartest dog I've ever owned. Now, my first serious dog, sorry about moving this thing around so much. My first serious dogs were boxers. There's those puppies. I'll show them to you in a minute. They were the best. Well, at first I started out with Shawnee, my boxer girl, and I had her whole life. I bought her from a guy that bred his boxers, his two boxers, and her dad bought her for me. Then we got a sister of hers that nobody else wanted, the last puppy of the litter, so we got her. And we got her from my son, and then we adopted one from the shelter, a boxer. And they're very smart dogs, very well trained, but they've never been comparable to the golden doodles. So next I had English bulldogs. I meant to get one, ended up with 3, and had them their whole life, but they all 3 died of cancer around the age of 5 or 6. And now Tank lived longer than that. He was the oldest one, and we got him. He was what I call a used dog. Some people got him. He was on his 3rd home, and they had him maybe 2 weeks and didn't want him either, so we got him but kept him his whole life. The way it works around here is if you come here to live, you're here. We don't get rid of you because you don't quite fit our little mold of what our idea was. Not to say that does not happen to people. I mean, you could end up with cancer, you could end up homeless, you could end up with all kinds of issues and might need to have to rehome your dog. But to me, a dog is family. And since I'm getting older, I think a lot about what would happen to my 3 girls if something happened to us. And I just have to trust and believe that if something like that did happen, that my boys would make sure that they either took them in or they made sure that they vetted the person that took them in. And if that wouldn't be possible, I'd rather have them put to sleep than be crammed somewhere and used for breeding or something like that, because they are intact. Okay, so I just feel like I want to address. If you think you want a golden doodle, there's some things you should keep in mind. Before you get one, try to find out how big they're going to get, if that size of doodle fits your lifestyle, fits your family. Would your kids be okay with them? Would they be able to live in the house with the doodle? Do you have enough experience with dogs to be able to raise dogs that big with kids? Because that's an issue with me that's a little bit touchy sometimes. I can't stand when people get a dog for their baby, when that dog might go 70 pounds or more, and people don't consider that dogs paw at you. They might scratch. They do bark. You shouldn't get a dog and let your kids just rip its hair out and think that's cute if they want to ride them like a pony. That's abuse. I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but that's how I feel about that. I mean, you should use some wisdom. If you have children, you have no dog experience or very little, and not a realistic expectation of how these kids and these dogs are going to live together. Because dogs are animals. They have to be taught. Kids need to be taught how to be a dog companion. I've seen too many times what happens in that situation. And a dog is not put here for a kid to do whatever they want to do to it and then slap the dog or put it in and give it a death sentence because of something it did and it didn't even understand. So you need to think about that both ways. Think about, is the child ready for a dog, and are you ready for a dog, and is the dog ready for a child or another animal if you already have cats or whatever in your house. I feel like if you get a doodle from a breeder that's acclimated the doodle puppies to cats and to other animals and to children, which I plan to do, you're going to have a whole lot better experience with that. They need to be trained to be around other animals. You need to think about how many hours a day you work. You can work all day and have doodles. Now, I'm lucky enough to work where I come in and out of the house all day. I'm self-employed part of the time I might as well be. I work for a high school, and I can, I have short hour and a half, 2 hour shifts, and then I take a break 3 or 4 times a day. And I usually use that for walking now that Pet Dad has retired. I just usually walk on my breaks or go to the bank or something like that. But anyway, so how many hours a day are you working? If you get a doodle puppy, make sure that the breeder that you got it from has crate trained these puppies. That's all doable if you work. But you should think about all that if you want to have a successful pairing with you and a doodle puppy. And then another thing you should think about is, do you have the space for it? They do need a lot of exercise. I see people online saying, these dogs are hyper or they're whatever. All they need is a lot of exercise time. Now, I've seen people say 15 minutes is enough, like a couple times a day. I mean, if that's all you got, that's okay. But I have a big 1.5 acres. I had the run of 2.5 acres, but I've got an 1.5 acres fenced in. And I let the girls out quite a bit and let them run when the weather permits. Now, Doodles, you don't want to let them get full of mud on their feet and with wrestling and all that, so you got to think about that too. But anytime it's dry enough or it's warm enough or, not snow all over the place or whatever, I let them play in snow. Oh, excuse me, in snow, but also you don't want to, get your house ruined with muddy feet prints and like mud clods, or wear yourself out where you have to just continually put these Doodle feet in a bucket of soapy water and wash all the mud off, which that's what I do if they get like that, but we try not to let that happen. But they do need a lot of exercise. And a little side note, before you take them to the groomer, let them go out and run as long as you can, and they'll behave better for your groomer if they get some of that energy scrubbed off. So you need to think about, do you have enough space for the dog to be able to go out and run and be happy and fetch and chew on sticks and all the things dogs like to do. You need to think about, do you have a fence or can you put up a fence? I'm saying that because neighbors a lot of times, they don't want a dog in their yard if it's not their dog. And if they don't own a dog, they definitely don't want a dog in their yard because of the pooping. And like me, I have a fence, and I can choose whether I want to clean up after my dogs or not. And I generally don't. I let the rain do it, because I have a lot of space. So think about, do you have the space for the dog? If you live in an apartment, you can still get a Doodle if you really want one. But like a lady that got in touch with me, she was going to build a website for me, and she saw my channel. I'm sorry, I'm moving this around. She runs, I think, twice a day, and she works in an office, so she takes her Doodle with her and she runs and puts it on a leash with her, Now, they're not going to be a guard dog most generally. My boxers were guard dogs. I mean, if somebody was playing and act like they was going to wrestle me or slap me on the back or something, they'd go after them. They didn't attack people, or anything like that, but they definitely did not want, they guarded me. So, and they guarded Pet Dad, and it definitely guarded children, from anybody bothering them. But Doodles are not a guard dog. So if you're going to run with them, that's a good way to give them some exercise. Also, if you want to let your dog be a guard dog, you need to think about whether you want to let them be that, because most of the time people are looking for an excuse to say a dog did something to them for monetary reasons, especially people that don't own them. So think about that too. Now, a lot of this is my opinion. It's just for entertainment purposes. I do not know anything about, expert opinions or anything like that. I'm just giving you what my opinion is, and things that I know about what Doodles do. So if you're going to think about getting a Doodle puppy, or a grown one, or adopt one, or whatever, you also need to think about how much time you have to spend brushing and grooming that dog, because Doodles absolutely have to be brushed. They have to be brushed, line brushed, and combed. Look up YouTube videos all over the place that show you how to do that. And but you have to do it, or they're going to get shaved down every time they go to the groomer. The groomers are not going to be able to stand there and brush all those mats out. They will definitely get matted, and it's cruel to the dog. It's very painful to the dog to get mats. And you need to think about, do you have the money to have this dog groomed every 5 to 8 weeks? Now, we took ours most of the time every 5 weeks. I groom my own now, and I have to do like one dog every few days or one dog a week, because at my age especially, it is a lot of work, and it's hard on my back, but I do it. I just want to be their groomer, but that's the reason I do it. I just want to be the one that grooms them, and I'll do that until I can't, and then I'll just let Casey do it again, I guess, if I find her. But anyway, they had a groomer, and they had her from the time they were 3 or 4 months old. That's what else you need to do. You need to think about, as soon as that puppy gets old enough, you need to take it to the groomer and let it get a puppy groom. And they'll just get the puppy used to being brushed and touched and, having to stand still, and the sounds of the clippers and the toenail clippers or the Dremel, whichever they use. You need to think about, do you have the money to spend for the next 12 to maybe 15 years on this dog being groomed every 5 to 6 weeks? This is not, or 5 to 8 weeks. This is not even I might do it thing. You have to have Doodles groomed, or you have to groom them yourself, because if you don't, they're going to be a big wad of hair and pain, misery. It's a lot. So you need to think about that. And I would say the cost of the groom, we were paying about $240 or $250 for 3 girls, for all 3 of our girls to go to the groomer. I always used to groom Roxy myself, but when the other 2 started going, I just went ahead and started sending her. I think I started it actually when I broke my leg that time, and I couldn't do it. So they wouldn't let me get up on my foot for like 3 months, so I couldn't groom her at all. So that's when we started doing all that. But I have now a grooming tub. You can look back on my old videos. I've got a grooming tub. I've got a grooming table that goes up and down with a foot pedal. I've got professional clippers and shears and sprays and clipper guards and clipper blades of every size that I could ever need, and anything else I would need, I have it. So you need to think about that. You need to think about, do you have enough room in your car to take a Doodle to a groomer or take it anywhere? Do you have the money to pay for the vet? That would be with any dog, though. Just think about all these things. Just take a realistic inventory of what you expect to do with this dog. Do you expect to just buy it or get the dog and just let it live in the house and everything's fine, like you would if you had a little beagle that didn't have to be groomed or something like that? There's a whole lot more to a Doodle, but I really don't want this to deter anybody from getting one, because they are hands down the best dogs. They are trainable. I see all this junk online about how, oh, they're not trainable, they're hyper. I don't know who's getting these dogs that's saying this, or I don't know if they didn't check out the breeder they got the dog from. Because if you get a good breeder, they'll do temperament testing, they'll do genetic testing, they'll do hip testing, which ours are due to get December 26th. They're getting OFA testing, and they're getting the four things that you first start out with, I think it is. But if you do a little bit of research, and you can save yourself a lot of health problems, you can save yourself in the dog. You can save yourself a lot of heartache should they pass away early. I know there's a lot of things you cannot predict. You try your best, but then at the end of the day, it's up to God, because that's just how it's going to be. But if you get a breeder that's reputable, and don't try to go out here and say, oh, I know someone that's got this kind of dog and this kind of dog, and maybe I can talk them into breeding them and I can get a Doodle. I don't recommend that. I mean, I know that's a natural thing, and that, back in the day, dogs just bred and they had what they had. But if you really want to get a good Doodle, get them from a reputable breeder. I'm not saying just because they got a website and they can advertise and then they got marketing skills. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, try your best to get a dog from some people that really know what they're doing, what they're breeding, and have them show you some proof of that. And then the breeder will usually have you put down a deposit before the puppy's even born. That's how we did with Roxy. And then when it's born, you get to see, progress of it growing up, until it's old enough to come home with you, 8 weeks, 10 weeks old. But those are reputable breeders, people that do things like that. I'm finding out now the market's getting very flooded. That's why I haven't really been rushing to do anything with mine. I am going to breed them. I am going to sell the breeding rights to them. But I'm not getting in any hurry because I see that the market's flooded, and I don't want to put my girls through all that mess. And then people want me to give them the puppies. I'm not doing that. I've got over $20,000 invested in my girls right now, and the only reason why is because I want to be as ethical as I can be. I've taken classes on breeder boot camp. I'm apprentice member of GANA, the Golden Doodle Association of North America. They have a wealth of information that I'm learning from them. I've not got a male because I don't really want to own a male. I'm looking for a guardian home that would take the male and then eventually own the male. I don't want my male to live in my house with me, but I may have to do that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am going to health test that male just like I did my two girls. And so those are some things you need to consider. You need to get definitely a reputable breeder, and you need to think about can you afford to groom them? Can you afford the vet bills? They get a lot of ear infections, and it's just because of all the hair. I keep my girls' ears cleaned out as best I can, and they still, when they would come home from the groomers, they'd end up with an ear infection a few weeks later because it's difficult to bathe a dog without them wanting to shake their head about the time you go to spray water on their head, and if you get any water in there, there you go. You might as well start watching for an ear infection. And even in the summer, especially Bougie, she gets like sweaty down inside her ears. And I can start smelling her ears, and I can smell corn chips, and I know she's going to get an ear infection, and she does. So, you got to think about all those things. Now, the good parts are these dogs are super trainable. My girls know how to fetch, lay down, sit, speak, shake, hold paws. I tell them, put your foot up here. They put their feet up on me for me to do their feet, brush their little between their little toes or their big toes in my dog's case. You got to keep even the mats out from between their toes. They know how to get in the car. They know how to ride in the car. Their leash, they walk on a leash great. I can't think of anything they can't do. Now, I've been thinking about maybe getting some of those buttons that talk. I don't know if you've seen those online. Like the dogs literally know what word they want to say, and they push this button, like drink water or go outside or whatever. They literally can learn to associate a word or a command with a button, and they'll walk over there and push it. You can look up those videos on YouTube, but I'm thinking about doing that. I don't know where I'm gonna get the time to train them, but that's what I'm thinking about doing because I think it'd be awesome for them to be able to do that. And they are that smart. There's no doubt that they can learn to do it. So let's see. I've thought about cost, doctor bills, grooming costs, children versus doodles or dogs in general, animals versus doodles, space, time. Do you have time? Even if you work, you can crate train your dogs, but they shouldn't be in there any longer than 4 hours at the most before they get a break. You could come home at noon and let them go out and then let them run around a little bit and put them back in their crate, and they'd probably be okay. Now, by the time they're 2, I don't think you'll have to put them in a crate. Mine have, I've kind of gone by my past experiences, and usually by the time they're 2, hands down, you can leave them out of the crate by the time they're 2 years old. And believe me, that time passes quick. You can do that, and they'll be fine. Also, I have a plastic mesh hard thing. It kind of reminds you of a refrigerator shelf thing, but it's actually, I had to voice this over because it muted what I was saying, but this is the exact thing that I have. I have 2 of them, and I got them on Amazon. You just put a pee pad underneath that grate. They pee through the grate, and it works amazing. Only got to change it once a week maybe. Pad thing, and you put the pads inside of this thing, and then the dogs can stand on it and potty through the grates, and they don't get their feet on anything. And my girls will even use that when I'm gone, but most of the time they don't have to go, they'll just hold it, they'll hold it. But now again, Pet Dad's retired now, so somebody's usually always here with them. If we go shopping, we try to come back by 4 hours. If we're gone longer, no accidents happen. You just have to be consistent with them. But think about that, what you're going to do about that, because most people have to work. Both couples mostly have to work. But, you could either think of putting them in doggy daycare. One of my friends, Sheila, she has done that with hers until they got all the way mature. She put them in doggy daycare locally. It was an awesome place. They took videos of the dogs all day and sent them to her through the email or Facebook one. And they, she saw what was going on with them all day long. That place also grooms dogs. So she has Australian Shepherds. I think they're little ones, but she's got them. And they would groom the dog on groom day for her. She didn't even have to go out for the grooming. So you could think about doing that. And so by now we're talking about how expensive this could get to be. So that's another thing you need to consider. Most people, if they can buy a golden doodle that's health tested and from a reputable breeder, they can definitely afford all that because they're not cheap if you get a good one. Sometimes you'll find a breeder that couldn't sell one and they'll give them to you. You can find shelters where I'm starting to find out now people are finding them in shelters. It's rare, but they are. Most times a breeder that's reputable will take the dog back if it doesn't work out with you and the dog. That's what I will do. Then they'll find them a proper home that maybe they won't have to be rehomed again, because that is one thing with doodles. They kind of notice and they bond to one person, and it's really hard to get them to leave that home and go to a whole brand new home. But if it didn't work out, it might not be such a hard thing for them to move on, because actually I think they know a lot more about what happens to them than what we think they know. So, but anyway, that's just some of the things that you should think about if you're thinking about getting a golden doodle. And yes, they are awesome dogs, and no, they are not untrainable, and no, they are not hyper. They get hyper if they're caged up all the time, every day, all day. That's people do. So I hope this gives you a little bit more information about what to think about if you're wanting to get a golden doodle. And I hope you enjoyed the video at the beginning of just the girls, because now what we're doing, we're waiting around until December 26th when they go get their OFA testing. I'll have video on that. But I just kind of took some footage for the last week or so you could see what they do and what we do. And so that's about it for this week. I'll see if the vet will let me do any filming during OFA testing, but if not, I will definitely film them going down there, going in, coming home. I'll give a rundown of what happened, and then, of course, what the OFA test results come out to be. If they come out to have a high enough score, we will breed the girls. And I'm just trying to find a male that I can test or that is tested that I can either use for stud service or that I can get and put it in a guardian home. I could take 4 doodles. I've had 4 dogs before, but I don't think I want a male here when they are in their heat cycle. Wow. So let me go round those girls up and get them back in the house, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Okay? Bye.